A lantern swung at the prow of the brigantine Widow's Wake, its glow swallowed almost instantly by the unending gray that coiled around the ship like ghostly serpents. Droplets beaded on the rigging, dripped from the yardarms, and hissed atop the deck planks already slick with brine. To any sailor of sound mind, the muffled hush of moving fog would have spelled treachery. To Captain Elias Rake, it was the only world he knew. He stood with boots planted apart, black coat flapping in the damp, and watched the shifting folds of mist as if it were an adversary to outwit. His crew had long stopped asking him how many days had passed since they last saw the sun. It was easier to remember the day of the curse, 7 years ago, a broken relic and a wronged sea witch, a flash of emerald fire across a moonless horizon, and the roaring voice that decreed, "Until eyes clear as dawn guide you, you shall sail only in the shroud you birthed. Fog, always fog." In port, it clung to Elias alone, trailing him through alehouses like an ominous cloak until tavern keepers begged him to leave. At sea, it consumed the entire vessel, a mobile storm where no stars shone, and no winds ventured near unless invited by his own grim intent. Other ships sighted Widow's Wake only in rumor. They heard bells toll inside gray walls, and by the time they turned to ascertain the source, the phantom vessel had drifted elsewhere. It might have remained so until his bones turned to salt had he not found, tucked into the archives of a plundered merchantman, a single braided letter. The parchment showed the neat hand of the Royal Cartographic Society, sealed with a compass rose. To chart the impossible, the letter read, "Seek Maribel Sorrel of the Whitecliff Garrison, whose drafts reveal what clouds conceal." That sentence sketched the first shape of hope Elias had felt in years. It suggested a map that could pierce mystery, created by a cartographer whose quill might outline a path beyond curses. By the terms of his doom, he needed eyes clear as dawn to guide him, eyes that saw through veils. If anyone might possess them, it would be she who traced hidden coastlines as if daylight itself inked her lines. So, he altered the widow's course, steering east toward Whitecliff. The voyage should have taken 10 days. It took 22, for each chart he consulted grew useless once fog covered its compass marks. More than once, he thought the ship had drifted in circles. Morale frayed, rations dwindled, whispers of mutiny spread like mildew below decks. On the 22nd dawn, if dawn it could be called when the sky remained pewter, they felt the hull graze sandy shoals. Shapes of ramparts emerged, indistinct in the haze, but Whitecliff's watchtower bell rang audibly. Elias ordered anchor dropped and hauled a rope ladder over the side. He alone descended, unwilling to drag his superstitions ashore. The moment he stepped onto the pier's planks, a funnel of fog accompanied him, curling at his boots. Guards stared. They had seen strange sailors in Whitecliff, a trade hub resting on a limestone promontory, but never one traveling with weather in tow. Still, coin opened gates. Elias purchased silence with silver crescents and asked for directions to Maribel Sorrel. She occupied a loft above the garrison's library, where shelves bristled with atlases older than dynasties. He climbed wooden steps, slick with moisture from his trailing shroud. At the door, he paused, suddenly aware that he smelled of bilge and tar. The handle clicked under his gloved palm. Inside, lamplight glowed honey gold, banishing gloom. Yet the fog hesitated at the threshold, as if held back by invisible lattice. Elias tasted dry air for the first time in weeks. Map rolls hung from ceiling beams. Globes sat on stands. And at a drafting table by a window stood a woman, leaning over parchment, one hand steadying a delicate brass compass. Her hair, tied loosely with cord the color of wet sand, caught lamplight in bronze glints. Sleeves of a linen shirt were rolled to elbows, ink-spotted from years of work. When she lifted her gaze, Elias felt the cabin's timbers shift inside his chest. Her eyes were a clear, pale amber, sunlit honey without the faintest hint of cloud. A breath he did not know he held escaped him. The witch's words returned. Until eyes clear as dawn guide you. He had found them. Maribel blinked once, awareness sharpening. You bring a storm indoors, sir, she said, voice neither fearful nor unkind. He bowed mechanically. Captain Elias Rake of the Widow's Wake. I search for the one whose maps reveal what clouds conceal. I am she. Her gaze flicked to the swirling vapor halted at the doorway. And you, it seems, are every meteorologist's nightmare. A curse, he answered. 7 years bound to fog. I've come hoping your charts might carve me a route back to sunlit seas. Most would scoff, but Maribel unfolded a clean sheet deferentially, as though addressing the affliction with subtle courtesy. To treat an ailment, one must first understand its shape. Show me where the clouds cling. He gestured to the threshold. Behind me, always. Maribel approached. As she stepped into the doorway, the fog parted around her presence, retreating like evening tide from a shoreline. She extended a hand into the vapor. Filaments coiled around her fingers, then thinned to a faint wisp. It behaves, she murmured, as though it fears the certainty of a defined boundary. Fascinating. She pivoted toward him, those dawn eyes bright with curiosity. I shall help you, Captain Rake, provided you bring me to where this mist originates. My maps are not conjured. They are observed. I need to witness your horizon. Reluctance prickled. His ship was his haunt, his shame, his coffin. Yet he produced a curt nod. Within the hour, if you can be ready. I can, she replied, already lifting a leather-bound case. The ocean waits on no one. By the time they reached the pier, twilight had smeared purple into the sky, and Elias's private fog had grown thick again, encasing them both. Crewmen muttered when Maribel boarded. Some made warding signs, but their captain's grim nod kept tongues still. In the captain's quarters, she laid her instruments. Straight edge, compass, sextant polished, brighter than any star his crew remembered. She obliged the galley steward to bring her strong tea, and then asked Elias questions about the curse, its origin, its effects on wind and tide, the dreams it yielded when he slept, gray, always gray. He answered sparingly, but she listened as if each word were a coordinate. They set sail at dawn that never dawned, pushing away from Whitecliff until the shoreline vanished. Maribel took soundings, measured drift, sketched outlines of nothing but vaguest silhouettes, glimpsed seconds before the fog consumed them. Days passed. A hush settled over Widow's Wake, though not oppressive. Where dread had lingered, now curiosity replaced it. Maribel moved across deck like a slender mast, never stumbling despite slick boards. She spoke to crewmen about currents in constellations obscured, teaching men who had grown fatalistic. Laughter returned, soft, uncertain at first, then heartier. Elias watched from the quarterdeck. His heart, long armored, felt abrasion. He caught himself searching the haze for her figure and felt as though each glance brightened the air, if only imperceptibly. Yet the fog remained. A week out, he approached her at the rail. "Have your charts uncovered aught?" he asked. She tapped the roll in her hand. "We skirt a spiral. Your ship traces circles, like a lodestone around a buried needle. A whirlpool, a locus of enchantment." I suspect we, near the point where the curse began. Thunder rumbled overhead, though no storm brewed. The crew crossed themselves. Maribel's clarity remained undimmed. She requested the wheel. Elias, though master of the vessel, ceded command. Her slight hand steadied the helm. She guided them by subtle changes in swell, by rhythms he could not sense. On the second night after, she woke him from fitful sleep. "We've arrived where the map ends," she whispered. He rose, followed her on deck. Fog pressed thick as fleece, yet she marched to the prow. "Drop anchor!" she called. Chain rattled, water hissed, silence spread. Suddenly the gray parted as if drawn aside by unseen curtains. There, not 20 fathoms ahead, a solitary isle emerged, no larger than a naval fortress, ringed by black rock. In its center stood a stone altar half swallowed by tide. Atop it lay shards of jade glinting with malign green. "That," Elias said hoarsely, "is all that's left of the witch's relic." Maribel nodded. "Your curse cages itself to its birthplace. Destroy the remnants, the spell may fracture." Elias ordered a longboat lowered. He, Maribel, and 2 oarsmen rowed toward the island. The moment his boots hit the rocks, sea spray licked his face, and a gust of warm wind, not fog, whistled past. He experienced a forgotten sensation, openness. Yet vapor still clung to him, like shreds of cape. The altar leaned askew, runes etched along its flank. The jade shards pulsed faintly. Maribel laid a hand upon them, closed her eyes, and inhaled. The air brightened around her. With each breath, the stone's glow dimmed, as though her lungs drew out its poison. "It's bound to you," she murmured, addressing Elias, "because guilt anchors it. Tell me what happened here 7 years ago." He had not spoken the tale aloud since. Words scraped his throat. "I sought treasure rumored beneath these rocks. When the witch appeared, guardian of this shard, I threatened her crew, demanded passage. She refused. I mocked her warnings, broke her relic to seize the gold beneath. In rage, she cursed me. I sailed away with spoils, leaving her stranded." His voice cracked. "I never spent 1 coin. Fog found me before I reached port." Maribel offered no judgment, only that steady gaze. "Confession is cartography of the soul. Now," she said, "we mend what you sundered." Together they gathered the shards. Elias's fingers bled on jagged edges. Each cut sizzled, emitting wreaths of steam. Maribel guided him to set them back into the shallow depression clearly designed to cradle one whole gem. "Hold them," she instructed, "and ask for forgiveness, meaning it." The pirate who had shouted threats and brandished pistols once now knelt. "I wronged you," he said to the air, to the waves, to memory itself. "I wronged the sea and the one who shepherded it. I surrender my greed for sight of day." Tears mingled with mist. Nothing happened. Maribel's brow furrowed. She scanned runes, then looked at him. "Part of the relic is missing." She rifled her satchel, withdrew a small piece of jade, one she'd earlier removed from his cabin while mapping currents. "I found this lodged beneath a floorboard, humming like a heartbeat. The ship, too, is bound. We must return and restore this final fragment." They rowed back. Yet as they neared the brigantine, the fog convulsed, forming solid walls. Oarsmen panicked. Widow's Wake appeared distorted, sails contorted into grinning skull shapes. A voice boomed across water, the witch's voice, lingering through curse. "Greed disguised in contrition cannot unweave fate." The longboat rocked. Gray tendrils sprouted arms clutching the hull, trying to capsize them. Elias seized the jade piece. "Then take the last of my greed!" He hurled it into the sea. It pierced water with a hiss. A column of light burst upward, lancing the fog ceiling. Mist writhed like wounded serpents, but it did not disperse. Instead, it funneled toward Widow's wake, encasing masts, cords, every nail. The ship groaned, planks splintered. The weight of 7 years of haze pressed inward. Crew shouted. Maribel stood, hair whipping, and turned to Elias. Your vessel can't survive both curse and cure. We must choose. His eyes went to the ship that had been his home, his condemnation, and his legend. Memories of raids and laughter, of fear and wretched solitude entwined. He faced Maribel's dawn eyes and saw what she'd brought, clarity. Without it, he would remain fog inside and out. Let it go, he told her, voice steady. They leapt as a wave of scalding vapor swept low. The longboat upended, plunging them into chill water. Under the surface, sound muted. Through blur, Elias saw Widow's wake crack along her keel. Timbers split and spilled, trapped mist like blood. Bubbles roared. When they surfaced, coughing, the brigantine was already sinking, fog collapsing into itself in swirling whirlpools. Sucked downwards, the last mast slipped beneath, and suddenly, impossibly, the horizon appeared, a blazing band of rose light, the first true dawn Elias had witnessed in 7 years. Clouds overhead parted like theater curtains. Sun speared gold across waves. The sky, no longer a ceiling, expanded boundlessly. Crewmen floundered among floating debris, but joyous cries rose. The oarsmen righted the longboat. Maribel, drenched yet serene, helped each sailor aboard. When Elias hauled himself in, he looked at his hands. Scars remained, but the tinge of frost, the perpetual damp coating his skin, had vanished. They rowed back to the island. The altar lay quiet, shards fused, dull. Fog had gone entirely, replaced by a salt-scented breeze. Colors felt exaggerated. Sapphires and cyans of water, viridian moss on rock, copper strands in Maribel's hair. Elias touched the altar. It was merely stone, inert. The weight in his lungs lifted. Breath came easy. He realized with a staggering sense of wonder that he could see miles into the distance. Tears blurred his vision, but they were warm tears, uncomplicated. The crew salvaged what they could from the wreckage, constructing makeshift shelters and a signaling pyre. Within days, a merchant cutter spotted the smoke and rescued them. Word of a pirate captain adrift with no ship passed quickly along sea lanes. Naval authorities smelled opportunity. Yet when officials boarded to question, they found a man wearied, unarmed, and unexpectedly willing to surrender. The cutter changed course toward Whitecliff, reputation preceding them like gulls before a storm. On deck, under open sky, Elias stood beside Maribel as waves slapped the hull. "You've my gratitude," he said, voice raw. She smiled slightly. "I drew a map, but you chose the direction. Clarity does not come from eyes alone. It comes from courage to follow what they reveal." "Will a gallows greet me in port?" he asked lightly, but fear tinctured the jest. "Perhaps," she allowed. "Piracy has no statute of limitations, but so too may redemption. Whitecliff's magistrate values debt repaid. The coin you never spent could rebuild villages sacked during your raids. Testimony of crew and of a cartographer in good standing might bargain years of service for life." Elias exhaled. 7 years in fog, another 7 in chains would tally fair, as long as horizon stays visible. She reached, took his hand, calloused, cut, trembling with new purpose. Horizons belong to those who look up. Harbor bells tolled when they arrived. But Elias did not flinch. He walked past assembled onlookers, with wrists willingly bound by rope lighter, than guilt he'd already shed. Maribel remained at his side, holding rolled parchment like a scepter of authority. At tribunal, the magistrate heard confessions and witnessed maps illustrating demolished towns. Sequence of Elias's crimes pillared heavy, but evidence of restitution began equally to mount. Treasure recovered from the island. Sworn statements by saved merchants who'd once feared him, but now benefited from goods he surrendered. A petition by Maribel Sorrel citing extraordinary circumstances of magical coercion. Sentence came, Captain Elias Rake, the court strips you of rank and name, yet offers conditional clemency. You shall serve the crown as navigator to remote colonies for 10 years, mapping hazards at risk to your life that others may sail safe. Murmurs rippled. The magistrate added, the Cartographic Society has volunteered Ms. Sorrel to oversee your probation. A collective gasp met that. Maribel bowed. I accept. Elias turned to her outside the hall. Why tether your fate to mine again? Because the world remains vast, she replied. And you, Elias Rake, or whatever name you reinvent, know better than most its shadows and its lights. We chart not only coasts, but stories. I wish to draw the one we begin today. For the second time since the fog fell, Elias found words scarce. He managed, then let us set sail. Months later, aboard the Survey brig Dawnseeker, christened by Maribel herself, they departed Whitecliff. The crown flag snapped crisp overhead. Children on docks waved miniature compasses she had distributed as gifts. Elias stood by the wheel, no longer captain, yet entrusted with course, and laughed when the bow flung spray across his boots. Clear sunlight warmed decks. Gulls spiraled above like living sextants. Night came, untroubled by gray. Stars ignited one by one, charting constellations he studied in his youth. Maribel leaned on the rail, sketching patterns. What do you see? She asked. Possibility, Elias answered. He paused. Then, more softly, and in your eyes, clarity still. She met his gaze, dawn against dusk. May it guide you, always. Thus a former pirate, cursed to eternal fog, became a navigator of luminous seas, forever reminded that the sharpest map is forged not from ink alone, but from truth, forgiveness, and the unwavering brilliance of eyes that see through any storm. Somewhere, perhaps, a sea witch watched from her quiet shore, content that balance had been restored. The widow's wake rested in a watery grave, its timbers sheltering fish and coral, mist repaid to sky. Above, the world turned, seasons shifted, and ships sailed confident under sun and star. Guided across unknown waters by charts that bore two signatures intertwined, Maribel Sorrel, Cartographer, and Elias, no longer Rake, whose new surname was left blank. The space itself, a horizon, embracing every future he had yet to write.